Good afternoon, everyone. This is Darlene with Generations Health. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar, Boundaries in Caregiving, Preventing and Avoiding the Martyr Syndrome. Whoop. I'm sorry, we have a different slide pulled up. I apologize. Today's program is graciously sponsored by Belmont Senior Living. And in just a couple moments, I'm going to ask Debbie Riley to join us. She and Nancy Convertito are joining us from Belmont today, and they're going to share a little bit of information with you. But first, I do have some housekeeping things to cover with you. The first is, for this program, everyone is going to be muted, and that is simply to eliminate any background noise. However, this is an interactive program, so we do encourage you to ask questions, to answer questions. If you have comments about the discussion that is taking place, please feel free to communicate with us, and you can do that through the chat feature. As a reminder, if you scroll across the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a little bubble that says chat, and when you click on that, it will launch the chat feature, and it will most likely pop up on the right-hand side of your screen. Now, when you use chat to communicate with us, your questions, comments, and answers are not going to be seen by anybody except for Jennifer, the team at Belmont, and myself, and that is simply for privacy reasons. But Jen is fabulous about getting to those questions and comments, and will address those as she goes along. As I mentioned, we are so grateful to have Belmont Village Senior Living sponsoring today's program, and I would like to ask Debbie Riley to join us by sharing her screen and sharing a little bit about Belmont Village with you. And Nancy is here as well. You'll be hearing from her a little bit later in the program. Debbie?
Hi everyone. Welcome to this presentation. I know you will enjoy. Thank you, Jennifer, for letting Belmont Village be a sponsor. So just a few seconds about Belmont Village, if you will. We are Belmont Village Senior Living. We have independent living, assisted living, circle of friends, which I'll talk about in a moment, and also our secured neighborhood. We have 31 communities and 3 under construction. One of our 31 operating communities is actually in Mexico City, which is always super exciting that we are located there as well. Now, circling back to our circle of friends. So our circle of friends, many years ago, we have a developer that put this all together for us, and I'll tell you her name in a moment. They were for the people that have MCI+. They didn't quite fit in assisted living, nor were they yet all ready for secured memory care. So Beverly Sanborn, who's a licensed clinical social worker, has been an employee of Belmont Village for 15 years, collaborated with Dr. Sandra Simmons out of Vanderbilt University, and came up with this Circle of Friends program. So it's a program designed to work on 6 domains of the brain, and that's a whole other thing to get into, at which you can look at when I tell you where to go to find that. And they put this all together for these folks that has made the most incredible difference in their lives. Absolutely. It actually has kept them happier. They're amongst their peers. They start with exercise in the morning, then they go through classes. They even dine together. They don't have to, but they tend to make friends and do that. What has happened through all these years with Circle of Friends? It's been a game changer in the senior industry in assisted living. So which is great. You know, we love our partners and people out there, providers that like to copy us on that, because it's only helping those in between. If you want to learn more about Circle of Friends or any other services that Belmont Village offers, please go to our website, belmontvillage.com. There is a YouTube channel, and you can actually see a Circle of Friends a video that will give you even more information, and also talk about the 6 domains. Okay, now we can go over to Jennifer and enjoy the program. Thank you, Jennifer.
Great. Thank you so much, Debbie and Belmont Village, for sponsoring today. Has your life become overrun with caregiving duties? Are you the only one who takes care of your loved one? Or do you simply want to reduce your caregiving stress? If you answered yes to any of these questions, today's event was created especially for you. Our presenter today is the author of Cruising Through Caregiving, Reducing the Stress of Caring for Your Loved One, and a longtime gerontology instructor at Johns Hopkins University's Certificate on Aging program. She is one of less than 800 certified speaking professionals worldwide and has been featured in national media such as HLN, Fox News, ABC, CBS, and SiriusXM. When she's not working, she spends her time fantasizing about when she will be able to wander the aisles of TJ Maxx and Marshalls without a mask. Please join me in welcoming from Kent Island, Maryland, Jennifer FitzPatrick.
Welcome everybody, and thank you so much to Belmont Village for sponsoring today and sponsoring the series of programs that we've all been enjoying together. And today is all about boundaries, as Darlene mentioned. Welcome. I see we have people from Albany, we have Glenview, Illinois, we have all over California. So just write in, let us know where you're coming from. Nashville, Tennessee, welcome. We're so glad you are here with us today. And we, as much as we would all love to be together in the same room, it would be so great. It is nice that we have people from all over the country joining us. But as Darlene said, please write in the chat section at any point if you have any comments, any questions. We want you to get as much as possible out of this live event today. Austin, Texas, Fort Worth, Texas, welcome. And what we're going to do also is during this program, we're going to do an interactive exercise on how to tell if you are in the martyr syndrome as a family caregiver. And so I know we have a lot of family caregivers on today. We also have a lot of some professionals have joined us. And so professionals know that the exercise we're going to do is one that you can actually download after this program for free, and you can use it with your clients and your patients and your families that you work with. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. So first, I want to ask, are you a totally selfless caregiver? And I want you to be very careful before you answer that question. A lot of times we tend to think of the term selfless as a good attribute, a good thing. And I've heard a lot of people over the years say, oh, she was totally a hero taking care of her mom, or he was completely selfless taking care of his grandfather. And whenever I hear that term, I think, oh gosh, that poor caregiver is probably at the end of his or her rope, exhausted, burned out, feeling just lousy. As much as they might love the person that they're caring for, they're probably not maybe feeling as good for themselves as they could. And so our goal for you as a family caregiver, and for those of you who are professionals who have joined us today, I bet you know exactly what I'm talking about, that we don't want family caregivers to be totally selfless. What we really want is for them to be a bit more selfish. And we want them to be a little bit more focused on taking care of themselves and making sure that they are in a good place, they have what they need, and that they're able to give. Because when you don't have any energy left, when you don't have any time left for yourself, how can you possibly give to someone that's dependent on you, whether that person has Alzheimer's disease or ALS or heart disease or diabetes, or if they're recovering from a surgery? We don't want you to be totally selfless. That's never the goal. We want you to be the good enough caregiver. We want you to be somebody that loves your loved one and is doing a good job, but we don't want your loved one to take all of your energy and all of your time, because if they take all of it, you're eventually never going to have anything left to give to the person that you love who's depending upon you. So in my book, Cruising Through Caregiving, I talk about the concept of the martyr syndrome. And signs of the martyr syndrome might be physical, emotional, psychological, spiritual, social, relational, and financial. And I think most people, when they think about being a martyr, they think about the physical toll that caregiving can have on them. Maybe they're having headaches or stomach aches, or they're having terrible acid reflux. But I don't know that everybody necessarily always thinks about the social and the spiritual negative components of when you martyr yourself for caregiving. Martyrs die. We don't want you as a family caregiver to die. We want you to be healthy, and we want you to be able to have a long and healthy life, happy life, after your caregiving journey, or when I call in cruising through caregiving, your caregiving voyage comes to an end. Whether your loved one becomes less dependent, or sadly, maybe it comes to a point where your loved one is going to need a higher level of care, maybe senior living like Belmont Village, or whether maybe your loved one passes away. But we want you to maintain yourself, your physical, emotional, psychological, spiritual, social, relational, and financial help during this time. So let's figure out if you are in the martyr syndrome or if another member of your caregiving crew is in the martyr syndrome. So what I would like to ask everybody to do now, we're going to do that exercise that I mentioned, is I would like to ask everyone to get a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil out. Or if you want to pull up a Word document, if you're on your computer, I want you to take a moment and just get that together. If you have any comments or questions while everybody's getting that together, that pencil and paper or that Word document up, feel free to write in. Julie Groves Therapy, nice to meet you too. Marilyn from Dallas, hey, it's good to see everybody. We got a nice group of people from all over. So we're so thrilled to have all of you here today. So, okay, hopefully everybody has either a paper and pencil, or pen, or you have a Word document pulled up. And I want you to make 2 columns. So we're going to do this exercise that's in Cruising Through Caregiving. And I want you to think about either yourself, if you are a family caregiver taking care of a loved one, or if you are maybe helping out. Maybe you're not the primary caregiver, but maybe you're what I call you're in secondary position. So in Cruising Through Caregiving, I talk about the primary caregiver, sort of the captain of the ship that guides everybody. There's only really usually one captain. And the secondary caregiver is typically what I call the first mate. And so maybe you're a first mate, for example, and you are observing somebody that is the captain of the caregiving ship, and you think maybe they're a little bit in martyr syndrome. So you can either apply the next questions that I'm going to ask to yourself or to somebody else in your caregiving crew that you think might be in martyr syndrome. Or if you happen to be a professional, I want you to think about a family member that you're working with right now that you suspect may be in martyr syndrome. So get your pens and papers ready or your Word document. We're going to start. So on one side of your column, you're going to have 2 columns, remember. On one side of your column, you are going to just make an X, okay? And then in column 2, you are going to put a letter. So a letter or a symbol, okay? So column 1 is just an X if it applies to you. And again, if you're doing the exercise for a loved one or you're doing the exercise as a professional on behalf of a client you work with, if the question applies to them, you're going to put an X, but then you're also going to put the letter or symbol associated. So you're going to see what I mean in just a moment. So the first one is, have you been having stomach aches as a caregiver? And again, if you're the caregiver that you're assessing, or if you're thinking about someone else in your crew or a patient, if that applies to you, put an X in the one column and also put a P in the second column if this applies to you. If you've been having stomach aches since you've been dealing with a caregiving situation. I'll give everybody a moment to think about that one. Okay, have there been estrangements or tensions in your family since the caregiving began? Now, when I say family, it might mean your biological family, but it could also mean step family. It could mean if you consider friends part of your family network. But we're talking about estrangements, tensions in the family since caregiving began. If that applies to you, you want to put X in the one column and then an R in the second column. If it doesn't apply to you, you just don't put anything down in either column. The third one, unplanned weight change. I know a lot of us are always trying to lose weight, or some of us might sometimes even be trying to gain weight, but unplanned weight gain. So if that has happened to you since you've been a caregiver, let's put an X in the one column and a P in the other column. If this does not apply to you, we don't need to put anything down. Just leave the columns blank. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next one. Feeling more anxious, restless, or nervous than usual. So M, we want you to put an M in the column to the right, and an X if this applies to you in the column to the left. And if it doesn't, we pass this one by. Increased risk use of alcohol or street drugs or recreational drugs. And we can also include mind-altering drugs that are prescribed. So perhaps a benzodiazepine, a Xanax, or an Ativan, or some type of medicine that alters your mood, hydrocodone, alters your mood or your mind, whether it's prescribed or not, but if you're using it in a way that is not prescribed. So increased use of alcohol, recreational drugs, or a prescribed drug that's used in a way that is not intended. And so M would be for if this applies to you as the caregiver, and then we want to also put an X. And if this doesn't apply, then we pass this one on as well. Actually, please, I apologize. These are actually two separate ones. The first one is the increased use of alcohol and recreational drugs. So you actually will get two M's if you had alcohol and/or recreational drugs, and then the next one would be the prescription drugs. So, or a sleep aid, that you're using them beyond what the physician or whoever your prescriber is suggests that you use them for. So you either going to get one X and an M, another X and an M. So you can have 0, 1, or 2 for this section. Any questions at all, feel free to write it in the chat section. Headaches, since you've begun caregiving. P, and remember that this is, it doesn't mean you have a headache every minute of the day or that you're abusing prescriptions every single day. It might be that you're doing it 3 times a week, 5 times a week. It doesn't mean every minute, but has there been an increase in this issue for you since you began caregiving? So on the right-hand side, you want to put a P, and on the left-hand side, an X if this applies to you. And if it does not, then we just pass this one by. So Angela says, can the martyr syndrome be applied to working with or living with someone with addiction issues? Angela, I created this quiz really specifically for caregiving and caregiving martyr syndrome. I don't know how effective it would be. It may be effective, but I know that there's so many terrific assessments and quizzes out there for addictions. You could certainly try it. It definitely won't hurt to try it, but you certainly could try it if you would like. Okay, the next question is sleep problems. And again, if this has been something that you've encountered since you've begun caregiving, P would be the letter that you would put in the right-hand column, and also an X. And if this does not apply to you at all, then you just move on. Exhaustion and fatigue. Again, this is above and beyond what you maybe had experienced prior to being a caregiver. Whether you've been caregiving for a week or you've been caregiving for 10 years. It really doesn't matter. But if this applies to you, put it down. So the P in the right-hand column, an X in the left-hand column, and if it doesn't apply to you, we just skip this. And don't worry, if you've missed any of these, we will go back over before we do the scores. Aches and pains, more aches and pains than usual. Whether it be back or your knees starts to bother you, or you're having hip pain that is new. P would be what you put in the right-hand side, an X on the left, and if it doesn't apply to you, then we pass it by. Flare up of chronic conditions. Okay, so this can be This can be the same or it can be different. So a chronic condition, something that's been a physical chronic condition prior to caregiving, and now it's resurfaced. So arthritis, back pain, it could be any kind of chronic condition that had maybe been under control. So we put up a P on the right-hand side and X on the left if this applies to you, and if it doesn't, we pass it by. Arguing a lot with others in your personal or professional life, or both. And again, more than usual. An R for the right hand, an X for the left if this applies to you. Reduced sexual activity. P for if this applies to you, and an X, P on the right hand, X on the left, and it would be passing it by if this is not something that applies to you. Spending most of your time alone or only with the older loved one or other members of what I call the caregiving crew, others in the family that are caregiving. Now, to elaborate a little bit on the caregiving crew, whoever is part of your circle. Now, some of you might say, I'm the only one. I'm the only one that's doing caregiving. But others of you, like when my family was taking care of my grandma when she was sick, my grandma was really fortunate. Our caregiving crew involved 4 adult children, several adult grandchildren, several friends, and she had a pretty large crew. But some of you might have medium-sized crew, and some of you sadly might have no crew. But if you are spending most of your time either by yourself, with just your older loved one or other members of the caregiving crew, we want to put an R on the right-hand side and an X in the left-hand side. And we are going to pass it by if this hasn't changed for you. Now, I get that the pandemic may have impacted this a bit, but I don't want you to think about that, because just answer this straight. Don't even think about the pandemic. Some of you might have said, well, I was spending a lot of time with other people, but this is important to, even if it's only because of what's happening with the pandemic, you want to give yourself an R and an X if this applies to you. You feel unable to relax. You are simply unable to relax. You can't unwind. You can't relax. If this sounds like you, put an M on the right-hand side and an X on the left. And if it doesn't, good for you. Feeling disconnected from your spouse, your partner, or your significant other, if you have one. And again, R on the right-hand side, an X on the left if this applies to you. Onset or exacerbation of depression. So maybe you have started to have symptoms of depression, or you already had depression, but it's gotten worse since you've been caregiving. We want to add an M to the right and an X to the left. Resent family and friends who aren't caregiving, whether they simply happen to be friends of yours who just don't have a parent or a spouse who's sick, or you resent family members who you think should be helping out with caregiving but aren't. So if you're feeling resentment towards somebody because of caregiving, R on the right and an X on the left. And this is actually a pretty common one. Regularly turn down social invitations you'd love to accept. And if this sounds like you want to put an F on the right, an X on the left. And don't make this necessarily about COVID. And if you're in an area where there's a lot of social distancing still occurring, or you're not comfortable being out, don't utilize this one because maybe it isn't really relevant, but that you can use your own judgment if you think this applies to you. Feeling out of balance. If you feel out of balance since you begun caregiving, you want to give yourself an S on the right, X on the left. And hopefully there's some people that do feel in balance, but a lot of people as caregivers, they do feel out of balance. Often upset with other members of your caregiving crew. So maybe you're taking care of your mom and you're upset frequently with your sister who is also helping caregive. Maybe you don't like the way she does things. Maybe she doesn't like the way you do things. Maybe you don't think she does enough. Maybe she doesn't think you do enough. There could be all kinds of reasons. Maybe you're willing to pay for mom to go to senior living, like a Belmont Village, and your sister's not willing to contribute financially. There could be any number of reasons why you would be upset with other members of the caregiving crew, other people that help out. But if that applies to you, you want to put an R on the right and an X on the left. Haven't gone on vacation during this time frame of caregiving. Now, I know a lot of people during this time frame have not been on a quote unquote real vacation. So what we're going to do for this one is say haven't taken a day off, a break, a few days. So taken time away from caregiving and done something fun for yourself, whether it's a day trip, whether you went somewhere overnight where you did social distancing. Maybe you actually did go, some people are going on real vacations during this time, but taking time for yourself to do something fun and rejuvenating. If this hasn't happened since you've been a caregiver in a reasonable time, then whatever you consider reasonable, you want to put a S on the you want to put an S on the right and an X on the left. Sorry about that. Looks like we got a comment or a question. Hang on one moment. See what we got. Yeah, sorry about that, Octavia. It's an S. Okay, so flare-ups of a mental health condition other than anxiety disorder or depression. And that could be anything. Maybe you have bipolar disorder, but most of the time it is under control. Maybe you have any number of mental health conditions that are flaring up during this time, and it's been an issue for you. So you want to put an M on the right and an X on the left. Eating poorly, and this is subjective to a certain extent. If you feel like you're eating poorly for you, for your standards of how you typically eat, you would put a P on the right and an X on the left, if this sounds like you. Not exercising. P on the right and an X on the left if this sounds like you since you've begun caregiving. Haven't participated in a hobby you enjoy lately. F. So F on the right and on the left, it would be an X if this sounds like you. Now, again, I do understand that a lot of us have been robbed from hobbies that we like. And I know right now everybody's saying, oh, but virtual is wonderful. You do a virtual yoga class, you have a virtual Tai Chi, you do a virtual checkers or chess or something like that. If you haven't participated in any hobby that you enjoy lately, that's what we're looking for. Is there something that you've been able to do? It could be reading. If you haven't been reading or watching Netflix shows or watching movies or taking walks or maybe doing an outside yoga class if you're in a region of the country where there's not indoor classes that you could participate in. So I know that it's been limited because of all the craziness that's happening right now, but I do believe that if you haven't done any hobby that you enjoy lately, you want to give yourself an F. Missing your doctor's appointments. Mark, we're going to go back throughout all of these in a few moments, so I'll get you that letter that you need in a minute. Missing your own doctor's appointments. Now, I know most of you, if you're caregiving, you wouldn't dream of missing your loved one's appointments. You know exactly when they need to go, and you will get them there. But especially if you're somebody that's taking an online class like this, you're probably very, very on top of your loved one's doctor's appointments. But a lot of us who are caregiving are not on top of our own. And this includes eye doctor and dentist and anything else that you might need to go to the doctor for. So P on the right, X on the left, if this applies to you. Spending more money on your loved one than your spouse and partner are comfortable with. Spending money on your loved one than your spouse or partner is comfortable with, or you or your spouse and partner are not. You want to put a $sign for that one. $sign on the right, and on the left an X. Missing appointments with your mental health provider and psychotherapist. And again, I know that that a lot of mental health providers are just doing telehealth now, and it's not the same. But if you're missing your appointments, if that's something that you used to do and then now that you're caregiving, you've really let fall by the wayside, then you want to do an M on the right and an X on the left. Not taking your medication so P on the right and an X on the left. You left your workplace for caregiving despite financial repercussions to yourself, your partner or spouse, and your children. So you give yourself a $sign. So that can mean that you retired early, even though there were financial repercussions. That can mean that you went part-time, even though there were financial repercussions. That could mean that you quit work entirely because there were financial repercussions. Borrowing money from your retirement to take care of your loved one, another $sign. And this one doesn't really matter if you feel like it was okay to do it or not. It really we just want you to answer with a $sign on the right-hand side and an X on the left if you've done it. Missing religious services. Now, some people are all about going to their religious services, whether, again, I know this is a very, very, very weird time. Maybe they're outside, maybe they're virtual, maybe you are in part of the country where you can go to your normal, typical religious services. But if you're missing religious services, even though you'd like to go and you have an opportunity to go, that's when I want you to put an S. So if you would like to be going and there is an opportunity, whether it's virtual, whether it's outside, whether you can actually go indoors and do it normally. So we want to put an S on the right and an X on the left if this fits you. Spending more money than you can comfortably afford for items or services for your older loved one. Now, some of these questions might seem like there's overlap, but there is a rhyme and reason why I'm asking this. So maybe you are buying just groceries for your loved one right now, and it's not comfortable for you to do that at this moment, or you are paying for your loved one's medicines and it's not really comfortable. It's not an easy thing for you in your budget to do right now. Or maybe you are paying your loved one's rent. I know for my dad, when my grandma was alive, he paid my grandmother's rent and he could afford it. But if he couldn't, he would want to put a $sign on the right and on the left put an X. My grandma was really lucky. Not making time for prayer, meditation, yoga, whatever spiritual practices you may have. And if you're somebody that says, I never did any of that, I don't ever plan to, then this doesn't apply to you. But if you're somebody that you always made time for this type of spiritual practice, then I put an S on the right and an X on the left. Feeling angry with God. If you believe in a higher power and you have some strong feelings toward God, then this would apply to you. An S on the right and an X on the left. Not spending time in nature, if this is something that's important to you. And for different people, this means different things. So for me, I live near the water and I love the water. And if I wasn't able to be near the water, sometimes, a lot of times during the week, that would be my version. For other people, it might be not being able to hike or not being able to hang out in their garden, whatever that means to you. And some of you might say, nature, I'm a city person. I don't really care about being out in nature, so this just doesn't apply to you. But if you're missing time that you usually spent in nature some way, an S on the right and an X on the left. Okay, so how many total items on the left resonated with you? This would be your X's, but before we count those up, what we're gonna do is we're gonna backtrack and we're gonna go do all these one more time so you can make sure that you got them. All right. Stomach ache, P. Estrangements, tensions since caregiving began in the family, R. Unplanned weight change, P. More anxious or nervous than usual, M. Increased use of alcohol or street drugs, M. Increased use of prescription drugs, particularly not as doctor prescribed, M. Headaches, P. Sleep problems, P. Exhaustion and fatigue, P. Aches and pains, P. Flare-ups of chronic conditions such as arthritis, P. Arguing a lot in your personal or professional life, R. Reduced sexual activity, P. Spending most of your time alone or with other members of the caregiving crew or your loved one that you're taking care of, R. Feel unable to relax, M. Feel disconnected from your spouse, your partner, your significant other, R. Exacerbation or new onset of depression, M. Resent friends and family who are not in the position of caregiving. For whatever reason, they might not be caregiving, but you resent them, R. Regularly turn down social invitations you'd love to accept, F. Feeling out of balance, S. Often upset with other members of your caregiving crew, maybe your sister, maybe your daughter, maybe your spouse. Maybe you're taking care of your mother-in-law and you're mad at your wife because maybe you're doing more than your wife is doing, or you're not liking the way your wife is doing something, but feeling upset with other members of your caregiving crew, R. Haven't gone on vacation during this time frame of caregiving or done something fun for yourself, S. Flare-ups of a mental health condition other than an anxiety disorder or depression, M. Eating poorly, P. Not exercising, P. Haven't participated in a hobby you enjoy lately, F. Missing doctor's appointments, P. Your doctors, not theirs, but yours. Spending more money on your loved one than your spouse or partner is comfortable with, $. Missing appointments with your mental health provider or psychotherapist if you have one, M. Not taking your meds as directed, P. Left workplace for caregiving despite financial repercussions to yourself, your partner, your spouse, and or your children, $. Borrowing from retirement to care for your loved one, $. Missing religious services that you would like to attend, S. Spending more money than you can comfortably afford on items and services for your older loved one, $. Not making time for prayer, meditation, yoga, if that's something that's important to you, S. Anger with God, S. Not spending time in nature, if that's something that's important to you, S. So if you are comfortable, I would love to, and we will not put anybody on the spot, but if you're comfortable, feel free to share how many X's you have. So I'm going to give you a moment. We're going to let you write in if you want, and please do not feel like you have to, but really the only people that see the answers are myself, Darlene, who's our moderator, and Nancy and Debbie from Belmont Village. They're the only ones that see your responses. If you have more than 5 X's or checks, you probably would be described as being in the martyr syndrome. If anyone wants to share, if anyone wants to ask questions, okay, we got some, oh wow, some people saying 23. We've got other people saying 9. Some people saying 4. Okay, so kind of on the border. So thank you very, very much for those of you who are brave enough to share your score. You really don't have to. Okay, so Claire went further and she decided to give us the breakdown. So we're gonna get to that now. Oh, we got some 18, we got some 19. Okay, so what we're going to do now is look at the breakdown, because the interesting thing about being in martyr syndrome is, and again, this is not a perfect assessment, but it's an assessment to kind of get your brain thinking about if you are, or somebody you care about, or one of your clients or patients are in martyr syndrome, where are the areas that you need to focus on to pull yourself out? Because we don't want you to be a totally selfless caregiver. So let's look at what that means. So where are you? So if you had upwards, if you have 2, 3, 4 in financial, or you have 2, 3 in fun, F. If you have, 4, 5, 6, 7 in mental health, if you have, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in physical, if you have more than 1 or 2 in relationships, if you have more than 1 or 2 in spiritual, those might be areas that you want to focus some time on to pull yourself out of. And so what we want is for you to be healthy and happy, so you have energy and you have time and you're frankly healthy enough to be there for your loved one. What we see a lot of people in martyr syndrome do, and remember, martyr syndrome is, in my book, Cruising Through Caregiving, has a whole chapter on martyr syndrome. And again, at the end, you'll be able to download all of this worksheet, as well as all the other worksheets from the book, and a free chapter as well if you would like. But remember that there might be an area where you say, well, you know what, my mental health is all right, but my physical health isn't good. That's where I need to target my time. Or maybe you're a professional working with a family caregiver and you're saying, gosh, I feel this person's really struggling with their relationships. Maybe that's an area we could talk about when we have another meeting or session. Or maybe you're looking at it, you're saying, gosh, my wife is spending all of our money on her mom, and we really just can't afford it. We need to pull back. We need to figure out other plans. So what this usually does, if you realize you're in martyr syndrome, what we want to do is say, well, what are you going to do differently? What can you do to change the situation? So I want everybody, Johnny's going to run a poll, and I want you to think about who is in martyr syndrome. Is it you? Is it one of your crewmates? Nobody yet, but you think someone is close? Or you could say D, nobody, we're doing pretty well. So we'll see where everybody is. So we pulled up a poll. I know some people might be just writing in the chat section. We pulled up a poll. Let me see, got a couple of people writing in some notes. So let me see what you're writing. But we did pull up a poll that you can click on your answer, so we can tally up and see what percentage everybody's at. Oops. And I'm having a little trouble getting to that chat section. Darlene, if any of those chats are for me, would you mind sharing? Because I cannot pull up the chat section for some reason right now.
No questions right now.
Okay, great, very good. Okay, so Darlene, if we could tally up that poll in the chat section, that would be terrific. So 58% of you said you are in martyr syndrome. 21% of you said nobody yet, but I think I or someone is close. 16% of you said nobody, we're doing pretty well. And only a small percentage of you said one of your crewmates is. So what I would ask you to do is, if you are in that 16% who says, we're doing pretty well, we don't have an issue, what I would like to ask you is, what are you doing well? Share with the group, because this is one of the best reasons to come on an event like this, like Belmont Village is sponsoring. You can share your ideas and help pull people out of martyr syndrome. If you're in that 16%, we want to hear what you're doing. we got okay, okay, so we got a couple people writing in. Barbara wrote in, it's great to share with others, great questionnaire, but pastoral care at your church and friends have helped you to deal with caregiving. Okay, so Laura says, not as prepping myself for moving mom closer to me. You don't have martyr syndrome yet. Petra says she's making exercise a priority. Yeah, that's great. So I bet your P number was pretty low for physical. So I think it's about looking at what is important to you. What do you have to pull back on? And who else do you need in your caregiving life? So let's talk a little bit about that. So thanks for everybody for sharing their thoughts. But let's talk a little bit more about what we can do. Have you gone overboard? So overboard, I mean fallen overboard. You are on the cruise, you're cruising on the caregiving ship, and you're gone overboard. Do you need to course correct? If you're in martyr syndrome, if you have other people in your crew, and if you don't have a crew, that's probably one of the reasons that you're in martyr syndrome. You need to establish a crew, but acknowledge it to your crew, and Cruising Through Caregiving has all kinds of information how to do that. And in fact, the free worksheets that you can download after this, or Darlene put the website in, you can download how to assemble a crew. Even if you think that there's nobody else in your life that could help, but acknowledge it to your crew. Commit to one thing to pull yourself out of immediately. What is one thing you can do differently? Maybe like Petra said, you can start walking 10 minutes a day. I have a feeling since Petra loves exercise, she's probably doing something more exciting than walking, but she's exercising a lot. Connect with an organization that can help you. So maybe Alzheimer's Association, N4A is where you can find your local area agency on aging. Maybe you need a care manager, aginglifecare.org, or maybe it's time to really talk to somebody at an organization like Belmont Village. And the great thing about an organization like Belmont Village is they are trained, committed professionals that are there to talk to you and to determine, is senior living appropriate now or maybe someday? And if it's not, they always have lots of referrals that they can make for other services that might be local in your area that might be able to help you. But if you're in martyr syndrome, it's likely that you do not have enough help. You're not connected enough with groups and organizations that can help you. Give yourself permission to be imperfect. I think most people who are in martyr syndrome tend to be perfectionistic. They tend to, I lovingly call them control freaks. I have one of my aunts, I think she started to get into martyr syndrome a little bit when we were taking care of my grandmother, and she's definitely controlling as much as we love her. And she just is tries to do everything perfectly. And it's tough. You don't want to do that to yourself. It's not good for you, and it's not good for your loved one if you're trying to be perfect. We want you to be a little less perfect. What else will you change? If you saw your score today, and again, this is not a perfect assessment, it's just one assessment, but what else will you change as you decide that, you know what, you want to pull back? Your loved one is not getting the best of you when you are in martyr syndrome. And when you feel lousy and you're not feeling good, they're just not getting the best care. And I'm not saying that to make you feel bad, but think about it. Are they really getting your best if you're exhausted? What else can you change so you can give them, you have time and energy to give them. When you give to yourself, you'll be able to do that. Let friends and family do more. And if you say that there are none, I'm going to refer you to the free worksheet that you can get on cruisingthroughcaregiving.com. And it is a worksheet that will help you figure out how to find people, neighbors, people from your faith community, whoever, other people in your life that care about you and your loved one. Maybe bringing paid help, using Adult Day, looking into senior living. If someone else is in martyr syndrome, and a lot of you said that some of you saw that somebody in your crew might be, ask them, what would happen if you're in the hospital for a week? What if you get a really bad case of COVID? What if you have the flu for a week or two? What if you're in the hospital? What happens to your loved one if you're the only one? Often people in martyr syndrome feel like they're the only one that can take care of the loved one. They're the only one that does it right. If you have a loved one, and it wasn't most of you that felt this way, but offer help there, we're most willing to accept. I have a friend right now who's got a lot going on with her parents, And my offer is, let me send meals. That's something she'll let me do. She's not going to let me come over and do things for them right now, especially with the pandemic and everything. And she doesn't necessarily want me to take them to the doctor, but she'll accept meals. And if I send meals, that's something that she would do. And so think about what is the type of help they might like to accept. And by the way, I'm not the greatest cook, so these are meals coming from DoorDash or Grubhub. Point out specific observations of what you saw. Gosh, I saw that you told me, over the last month, you told me 4 times that you didn't sleep at all the night before. When you see something, don't just say you look tired or you look like you need help or you're gonna kill yourself. Try to be specific about what your concerns are. Be persistent and bring in authority figures. And sometimes it's a matter of offering help over and over again. I know a lot of times if someone else is in martyr syndrome and we see it, we oftentimes just offer help once and we say, okay, well, they said no, they said they don't need anything. But you also might want to bring in a faith community leader or maybe somebody else in the family or friend network that's not there daily to say, can you try to talk to this person if you're very concerned about them? Maybe the doctor needs to have a conversation with the caregiver in martyr syndrome. Now, when you are somebody who is worried about another person in the crew being in martyr syndrome, there's always the concern that there could be abuse and neglect. A lot of abuse and neglect that happens at the hands of a family caregiver, and by the way, it happens more by family and friends than it does by strangers. It's not intentional. It's just that the person has come to the end of their rope. They are burnt out. If you ever truly believe there's danger, that it's not just the person's just doing too much, but you truly believe there's danger, if you go to this website, and Darlene, if you would put it in the chat section, napsa-now.org, you can look up in any jurisdiction in the country where your local where your local adult protective services is. So you can work with them to look into the situation and ask questions if you have that concern. And again, this is if you really believe that there's true danger, but a lot of times there are certainly other ways by offering help, by trying to connect more with that person who you believe is in martyr syndrome. But if you ever did really feel like there's truly abuse or neglect situation, this is an agency that you can call, and you can find your local one on this website. And Darlene, if you would put that in the chat section, that would be great. So I want to thank you all so much for joining us today. If you would like the worksheets and the first chapter of Cruising Through Caregiving, just go to cruisingthroughcaregiving.com. I know Darlene already put it into the chat section. And we're actually going to leave it open if you have any questions or comments, but we're also going to take a few moments to go back and chat with Belmont Village a little bit more and see, they're going to talk a little bit about a video that we're going to share in a couple of moments. So thank you so much, Belmont Village, for sponsoring this program today. We are so grateful for how much you care about family caregivers out there and all that you're doing for them. And so we're going to keep that chat section open, and thank you all. I hope to see you next time.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. That was such great information. We really appreciate you being here today. That was a lot of great self-reflection for us to help determine, are we doing too much? Am I taking enough time for myself? What's the one thing I can do differently to make a difference in my life and in my loved one's life? I'm sure there's so much great information you just shared that we can share with our loved ones and incorporate into our own lives as well. So before we wrap up, we wanted to share a quick little video. This is a thank you video from one of our family members. He's one of thousands of Belmont Village family members who've realized that they aren't the only person in the world who can provide great care for their loved one. He's allowed us to take some of the caregiving burden off of his shoulders. And you just might recognize a few of the folks in this video as well. So I think Jennifer's getting that teed up, and we'll be watching that in a second.
It's a terrific video. So I'm going to try to pull that up, and if someone could let me know if I'm on the right screen. Nancy?
Yes.
You're good.
Great.
From the bottom of my heart. Cynthia, Norma, Diana, Wendy, Elizabeth, Stephanie, Gerald, Carol, Karen, John, Dahlia, Scovia, Dulce, Brenda, Rosa, Victoria, Charmaine, Sophia, George, Tanya, Etta, Jennifer, Arena, Will, Mario, Fernando, and the entire Belmont team. You are truly amazing. I cannot imagine the personal sacrifices you make every day to care for our loved ones. I'm humbled by your care for my incredible mom, Helen, who I love so much. And I so appreciate you keeping her safe at this very difficult time. You are true heroes on the front line. I'm in awe of your greatness. On behalf of my mom, my family, myself, God bless you. Please stay safe, and thank you. And a few of my mom's friends also want to thank you.
Hi everybody, Victoria here.
Hi, it's also David here.
Hi, it's Jessica Simpson.
Belmont Village.
Hi everyone.
I just want to say a big thank you to all of the staff and nurses at Belmont Village.
So I also want to say what Victoria said. Thank you to all the nurses and staff for looking after our Helen. She's a very special lady, so please look after her well and give her a big kiss from us. And we can't wait to see her soon. Take care, everyone. Look after yourselves and stay safe.
Belmont Village, I hear that you've been doing such an amazing job with taking care of so many people. I really want to thank you so much for taking care of the beautiful Mama Helen Pavis. She is so loved by me and loved by her family. And I know that it is such an amazing thing that you guys are doing, taking time away from your own families to be there for others. And it's just really admirable. You are all such heroes. We all love you so much and appreciate you, and God bless you.
Ken is so grateful for how you've been taking care of Mom Helen. We all love Mom Helen, and we are grateful for that too. And I just wanted to say thank you so much. We know you guys have sacrificed so much, you know, with regard to not being with your families and just being on lockdown. And we're just glad that, you know, there's somebody there for the family members when their blood can't come and see them. So thank you so much. And hopefully we'll get through this and you can see your families, and I'll be able to have sushi with Mom Helen, even though I don't really like sushi. I just get the rock shrimp. Anyway, thank you. I'm going to start crying. Okay, so thank you so much for all that you do, and God bless you and keep you and your family healthy and safe.
I just wanted to send a big thank you to all the pals and nurses and staff at Belmont for taking care of Mama Helen Pavis. We love our Mama Helen, and I know you guys have been working so hard to take care of everyone there. So many of you have families and are mothers and fathers and have stayed away from your own families, taking care of our mothers and fathers. And so I thank you from the bottom of my heart. God bless you. Stay safe, and sending you all my love and light.
And finally, we've got another virtual event next week, Tuesday, September 29th, discussing the challenges and dangers that can come along with social distancing, things like loneliness and social isolation, and how we can help our patients and our clients and ourselves get through these challenging times. It'll be a great event for everyone to attend, especially social workers and case managers, as you'll earn a CE credit. So we really look forward to seeing you then, and thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon.
Great. Thank you so much, Nancy and Debbie and Belmont Village. Thank you all for joining us. For the links that were mentioned, you can find those in the chat. You just need to copy and paste those. I also put in a quick survey, if you wouldn't mind taking that for us. It's an evaluation on what you thought about today. Thank you so much for joining us again. Thank you, Belmont. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.